Welcome to Unwound. I'm your host, Doug Naish, and on this segment, we'll be speaking to Caroline Davies, Chair of SOS, Save Ocean Science. Welcome to the program, Caroline.
Well, thanks for having me, even if it is a Monday morning.
Yeah, great. Look, recently the federal government has announced some pretty sweeping changes in the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and some of those changes impact our St.Andrews biological station. And as a result of that, it's my understanding that you and others have formed what amounts to a political action group to try to influence the federal government to change these decisions. Could you explain to me how the group came about?
Shortly after the staff at the biological station got their notices, a few of us were having lunch. And of course, we know some of the people being impacted by these notifications they received. And we decided that we should do something about it, because not only is there a job loss of 7 positions, and these jobs are gone. It's not that the people are going to leave the jobs and somebody else will come in. There are 7 jobs that are lost out of the biological station. But more importantly, the toxicology and contaminants group is cut totally. And this is the group that assesses the quality of life underwater. And I think that what we were terribly and continue to be terribly concerned about is if nobody's testing the seafood and the things we eat, or that the fish and other crustaceans eat in the ocean, then how do we know whether it's safe for us to eat and we can continue to have our industries like the aquaculture industry, have the tourism industry, the fishing industry, all those things that are very important to the local economy, not just in New Brunswick, but across Canada. So we've decided to do something about it.
Well, look, and I noticed that you have put out some publicity information to the public, at least locally here. And what I'm interested in is, if people are concerned about this, how do they get connected with your group?
Well, we right now have an email address, which is sos.oceanscience@gmail.com. We are also looking at opening up or creating a web page, because I think we need more publicity. If people are interested and want to know what's happening, it's much nicer that they don't get a response to their email at midnight, that they find out about it in quick time. So we're going to, we've put out a backgrounder. It's going out to the local area today through the post office, so it'll be in everybody's mail, which outlines what were the reasons that we're fighting for, and some of the activities that we hope to stage, and also some of the people that we suggest people contact. We've included email addresses for politicians, both at the federal level and at the provincial level. And we will be doing a rally in July, which will include speakers. We'll probably have a fun element also, just to let people come and meet some of the committee members, meet other people who are interested in saving the expertise that is walking out the door when these people leave their jobs.
Well, that sounds like it's a big mountain to climb, but it sounds like you're partway up already. I also noticed that in the news from the newly elected mayor and council, that they have already stepped in and on their own accord, written to pretty much the same list, including the Prime Minister, decrying the loss of scientific knowledge in this area and also the loss of jobs and the livelihood of people who were in those positions. So it seems to be a parallel activity, but certainly going in the same direction. Do you see that as being that way? Is it a helpful gesture?
Totally helpful, and they're complementary roles. I believe that there are things that we as a committee can do that maybe elected members or elected representatives, whether they be the mayor and council or at the provincial level, have some restrictions on them. So we are keeping the mayor and council informed of what we're doing, and including have sent a response to the editor of the Telegraph Journal in response to the Minister Ashfield's letter in Thursday's edition last week. I don't know if it's going to be published, but the frustration at these decisions being made without sort of thinking long term what the impacts are going to be made me write this, and I shared that with the mayor, and I have shared it with the committee members, and as well as with MPs at the local or at the provincial and federal level.
Yeah. These rather macro decisions that get made, I think, by the bureaucracy in Ottawa, and then, obviously with some knowledge of the politicians, but not necessarily complete knowledge of the politicians. In some cases, the decisions get made, they get implemented, and then what we hear from the politicians generally is minimizing the impact of the decisions. In other words, they say to us, it's not that bad. Does that characterize what's going on right now with this decision?
I believe that's part of it. Part of it is also, it's divesting, the federal government has made decisions to divest itself of in certain areas of expertise. In this case, they believe that now whether it's the politicians or the public servants, I don't know who's said they can do that, but they could buy this expertise. The St.Andrews Biological Station is celebrating 100 years of existence, and it seems to me it's taken 100 years to bring us to where we are today, to where we have a thriving agriculture industry. A lot of that was based on the research done by the biological staff at the biological station. And then to sort of say that one component in any program, you have to do the full cycle review. And to my mind, the toxicology department is your audit committee. It's your committee to make sure that what's going on, what you're doing is viable. It's not sort of changing the way the earth rotates. It's actually, you're on the correct course. So that type of expertise, to have a national standard that works on all our coasts, to have a national standard that is respected in the same way by the various components of the industry, unless you have somebody overseeing that, you're going to get inconsistencies, and you're going to get things like the sea life being affected, we've had in the past, and I'll talk about freshwater for a minute, but we had mercury in a lot of the fish up north. You don't want that to happen. We've had that. We've lived through that. We've seen what the results of that type of accidents can be. We need to make sure we have a group that's going to oversee this and remind us all, whether it's me as a consumer or it's somebody who runs a business dealing with the seafood, that we have standards and that it's safe. So that's a real concern, and we're letting expertise walk out the door. We're also letting, we've got, I know in this modern age, I'm going to shift tacts here a bit, you have, we can Google anything. We can go on the internet and do our research, but not everything is available through digitized live sources of information or through the internet. And for people who do research such as is done here, often they rely upon papers and knowledge that is captured in work done by their predecessors that hasn't been digitized, that is available only in the library here. It's used by not only the staff of the biological station, but staff of some of the other organizations co-located here in St. Andrews, by university students, graduate students, by universities in the region, not just in New Brunswick, but also Maine, Nova Scotia. And that's going to be moved from here. So when they come here to do their work, they're not going to have access to all that information that they would have had up to date.
So in other words, you're predicting that this is really an absolute loss of scientific information that has been built over a long period of time and that does have credibility?
That's how I see it. It'll be housed somewhere, but probably not with the people who need to use it.
Right. The other thing you noted, which I'd like to follow up on, is the fact that although the private sector has a big role to play in the management of the oceans, I think what you're saying is that the private sector, unfettered with no government regulation, might not be the best model for Canada and for our location?
I'm not. If you are on a tight budget and trying to make a profit, you're probably not going to spend a lot of your available cash on doing follow-up until you're mature enough, sophisticated enough as an organization to be able to do that. The other thing you have, and we've seen it in around the world, is the inconsistency of application. So you could have company X which adheres to the standards and does a great job because they maybe have a bit deeper pockets, or maybe they're more mature as an organization, and does a good job of it. And you can have others that don't, and they can ruin it for everybody. Yeah. They can pollute the waters. They could introduce a foreign species. So that does concern. I believe we do need an oversight body. We've seen it with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency over the last few years with all the various, the swine flu and the avian flu, et cetera, where they've had to come in and have a national standard, and industries had to respect it.
Yeah, and my comment was not meant to be a criticism of the private sector, merely to say that perhaps government has a role to support the private sector in that way, to allow them to become more mature and to work with them, because obviously if the government is paying for that oversight, the private companies do not have to pay for the oversight, and the public gets protected.
Correct, and I agree with you. I mean, as I say, but it often is an element of maturity in an organization where they have consistent enough income that they can afford to pay more attention to that. And that's, and there are lots of good companies doing that now. So the industry is not necessarily the bad boy in this. I think we're hoping that we'll get some support from the private sector in terms of trying to ensure there is a group that they can go to and say, what's this?
Yeah. The other thing that occurs to me in looking at this situation is that there's a bit of a credibility disconnect. For the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen an enormous amount of construction going on down at that site. And now all of a sudden that we have a state-of-the-art site, we're losing staff and scientific knowledge from that site. It doesn't seem like very good planning to me. Is that an issue that you've thought about?
Definitely, and part of it is two different pockets, one that pays for construction and one that pays for salaries. But yes, there is a disconnect, and the department should have realized that when they were investing nearly $62 million into this facility, and it's a gorgeous facility, and I mean, it's the envy of everybody in fisheries and oceans, and probably further afield in Canada. And so to have this and then sort of say, but sorry, you guys are no longer needed, it doesn't make sense.
We're going to stop for a break at this point to have a few messages, and we'll be right back.